When it comes to looking at it, I mean, you must see some common mistakes or misconceptions people make when it comes to balancing accessibility with design. Sarah, what's your thoughts on that? How can people get around that?
So one of the big ones is that you people thinking you have to sacrifice the design for accessibility. So people think just because the site's got to be accessible, it's got to be really simple or plain for it to be used. No, we can bring design in. We just have to be really smart sort of about it. Like inclusive designs can be really visually engaging. And actually, some of my most exciting subsites to work on or websites is when the brand is crazy, as in like beautifully designed, and I have to try and put that onto a website that needs to be accessible because it's publicly available on your gov.uk domain, and I have to make it work. But I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that accessibility has to be hard or overly complicated when it's built into your culture of your company, which is what we've spent since 2018 doing. Every member of GOS is constantly thinking about accessibility. The daily questions I get when people go, "Oh, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's moved through." So we make sure that not only do the creatives do it, but the developers working on it are running acts, as does the QA. But we also engage with the sales teams and stuff to make them aware of accessibility. We work with marketing to make sure any marketing material we put out is accessible. So it's by having it not being just one department. Creative again bears the load a lot of the accessibility issues, but we make sure that everybody's aware of it. So it's really important. Another big misconception as well is that accessibility can just be one. Like you can just like you run an automated tool, you get your score, there's no errors, it's working fine. So you're like, win. The copy that could be written on that page could make no sense, which means it's not accessible. So it's really hard to explain to people that okay, we were passing Silktide, we're passing Wave, we're passing all of these automated testers. But if someone puts up a picture with text in and not put alt text in that text, you will fail. And there's nothing we can't, as much as we at GOST always try and make sure we allow you enough flexibility, but not enough to cause these issues. We still allow you the flexibility to do that. Like you can upload any image, but if you put text on, like as a background image, again, that's the kind of things that we just have to be aware of. And again, when we're developing it in house, we always try and make sure that we block anything like that. So again, if there's anything that comes up when you guys are working on it that you think actually you've given us so much flexibility, Sarah, it's amazing, but our content editors won't stop uploading images, things, is there anything we can do? Those are the kind of conversations to sort of have with us, especially with AI coming in. It's amazing, like with checkers to look for text and things like that. So yeah, it's constantly about user testing and constantly about refinement as well. And also assuming that accessibility is just for disabled users. It isn't. It is for everyone. I will say the best thing that we've had with the Stan rollouts is that we've been able to pick up on these issues really quickly, fix them and roll them out. So actually people aren't aware that these things are getting resolved. So again, if there's anything you spot, again, I love working with you guys when you raise accessibility issues. You will notice that I am probably the one replying to your accessibility support tickets. Anything you find, I'm normally like, yeah, let's get that in, let's get that sorted, let's get that resolved. And then they're done for everybody. So yeah, it's those are the sort of different things.
And that's a good point you raise about the benefits of Stan, isn't it? Because the thing is, since my time at Goss, the other thing
Yeah.
that you've been kind of driving forward is the way themes and skins and everything are being so well put together now. I mean, what kind of challenges do you face balancing design accessibility with our themes? Because you always
Yeah.
say to me, "There's a theme for everyone. We've always got a theme for someone." So,
Yeah.
what challenges do you face, and how do you get around them?
I think one of the big things we changed, which again, if you had one of the original Goss themes, original crews, if anyone had those, you would have remembered it was purple and green and full of triangles. Because our first attempt was to give you as much the themes to be as quite styled out of the box. So they had these beautiful stylings on with colour and triangles, and then trying to take all that off to put your own branding on was such a pain to do. So what you'll notice now is that all of our products and themes are grayscaled. I always say that when you come to pick one, and that's on purpose. So they're grayscaled to accessibility standards. So the grayscales and the white scales are the right level of contrast, but it's grayscale so that we can put color on and put your personality on, because that was a huge barrier when we started balancing accessibility in design. But it's also trying to make sure that they're functional and that they don't clash. So the hardest thing is current trends. They'll go, oh, look at this amazing site that we've been sent, it's gorgeous, and then I get my little accessibility glasses out and run Axe, run Wave, and try and work out how we can do it accessibly. It's getting better because accessibility is starting to bleed out into the corporate world. But I will say, with the big European law that's coming out in June 2024, commercial sites have to be accessible. So there's a big shift happening in Europe, which the UK has to be covered, because if your customers are in Europe, that means they're protected. So we're going to see a lot of change from the corporate world looking to, hopefully, to us in local government and the ones that have been working with it for the last 7 years, if we've gone from there, for help and guidance. But hopefully by the corporate world getting more on board, there'll be better tools, and they will also help push the innovation. So I'm watching them to see how fast they catch up, because I think we've done a really good job of getting our sites accessible within the timelines.
Certainly with the themes, like you say, but again, I always know, and the current trends, I mean, that's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? But I know people, when they come aboard, they get very excitable about their corporate profile, their corporate color schemes. And you guys got any tips for the guys out there on how designers can balance between making sure their color palettes and portals profiles are right accessible, and as well as keeping their designs on brand?
So I always recommend that when you're getting a new sub-site or you're going for your new council brand, to have somebody that has accessibility as your sort of product owner of that brand, because it's quite common that we get your beautiful brands that have gone through your board, your members have all signed it off, you've got your specific color that you absolutely love, comes to me and I go, no, you can't use it. And I'm the bearer of bad news of how you do it. So if I share my screen quickly, let me come into here. So one of the examples that I've got, again, I bring you guys back up, definitely, is our friends over at Sunderland. So they had this new red. It's really nice. So it's really bright, vibrant red. You can see it all being used. So the colour you're seeing being used is actually a tweaked colour, because we got the brand guidelines and it wasn't compliant. So we ended up tweaking it for their visit site, to which they were able to feed back into the brand in agency, go, we need to use this colour red on anything that is web or accessibly based, and that is the colour that's now being used on their actual GovUK site. It is the same red. So we do have quite a lot of sort of influence. Again, so like the tools that you can use are getting better as well for checking. So you should be able to see now, if I right click on here and inspect, and then come over to here, where is it? I'll come over to this one. It's down here. There we go. See more. Lovely. So there we go. So if we click on color now, you should be able to have more contrast information now on Google. But my favorite one that I always use is Snook. It is the most horrific looking site. I'm going to say it is. But the reason this is my favorite, I'll post a link to this afterwards in the chat, is because you can play with the values really easily. I was playing with the Chrome one earlier, but what I really like is that you can come here and make it more accessible, and you can see the contrast changing. People always laugh when I show this one, but I've still not found a better, that there's ones with beautiful UX that you can tweak and change, but I love this one because it means you can just tweak it, and then you can put a bit more blue in and tweak the hex codes to try and get your ratio up to match. So that's one. Another client that we worked with was Swansea Grand. So when we did this website with Swansea, again, Liz from Swansea will remember that we only had the logo. So they had this logo and they were like, oh yeah, we want to use all these colours within the site. I was like, oh, okay. Well, you can't have white text on the yellow. The pink isn't quite dark enough to have white on, neither's the teal on that. So we ended up working with the Swansea Grand to darken and change their colours of their brand before they pushed it out. So we had to really like tweak and change. So again, we're really quite we like again with any brand, we're more than happy to help work with you guys. So again, if you're thinking about a rebrand, passing us the brand guidelines early so we can just do the checks. But again, this is the kind of things like where I talked about the culture of your company. It's about having it all in there that everyone's looking at it. Unfortunately, amazingly, not unfortunately, I'm going to say it's a nice skill. I can look at any colour now and go, that's not accessible. So it's one of those life skills that I now have. I can look at two colours and go, they're not accessible on each other. And it's about 90% accurate now. I'm quite proud of the skill I've owned, but it's definitely sort of come through. And again, to show off our friends over at Stockton, orange is the hardest colour to do. So orange and black, fine. You can go as bright and as vibrant as you want. But a lot of time you want orange with white text. And to get that, you have to get, it's a muddy, horrible brown that you have to get to get things. So yeah, it's like a muddy, it's a very not a nice color that you have to get to get it to have white text. So orange is definitely my the color that I always dread when it comes through the brand guidelines. Unless you've got the text on black, then I'm happy, then the due diligence has been done.
Absolutely, do all we can. I mean, and the Stockton site looks great. I mean, I'm always really impressed, super impressed with what the team at Stockton do. But based on that, what you're saying is the big challenge for accessibility and design for Stockton then was their colour. I mean, were there any other accessibility discussions need to be had with Stockton?
Yeah, there were, and they're more happy to talk about it. So what I've managed to do is go onto the Wayback Machine. It is the best thing. I absolutely love this website. Let me just get rid of my toolbar. Lovely. So if you ever want to remember what your past council sites look like, it's the Internet Archive. So you could put your council.gov.uk in and go see your history of your site. So this is how the site was. It was I have to admit, it was gorgeous. It was a lovely one page. It'd been designed by a local agency, and they wanted us to take it on and then make it accessible. So you can see straight away there's text moving, so you can play and pause the video, so that's fine, but the text is rolling, and when you listen to it with a screen reader, it's not announcing like on the ball and then course as it should do in like the Region Polite or so it shouts it to you as it's rolling through. There's no way for a sighted reader to access it, and there's no way to stop it either. They just keep rolling through. They also have down here, this rolls through as well. So this goes through all the different sort of different tabs and things very slowly. Again, no way to stop it. And then there's lots of movement as well. One of the so when we came round to do it, we had to sort of go, well, we can't really have too much animation, or we'd have to have pause and play buttons everywhere to stop the movement. One of the other big elements was it's all capitalized. So you'll hear me say quite a lot that capitalized text is a bit of a no-no, because again, it's how people read and move through, and the text was actually capitalized within the HTML, so it would have just shouted at you in a screen reader. So we had to go back to sort of the drawing board and go, we can still have that sort of nice font, but we need to make sure that it's all in sort of correct language, so it's very much easy and readable. So that was the kind of things we had to sort of go back and move through. And similarly, the text was incredibly small, and it was also serifed. So you can see here, so it was really hard to read. So we went back to the sort of drawing board and went for a much more sort of web-friendly sans serif font and moved through, but hopefully keeping that sort of love and feel, because I do love these sort of sites. So I always do look at these and see how we can push the panel templates to have these look and feel. So again, especially with this site, we really use the body template a lot to push some of the inner content and move through. And again, with the animations, when you were checking it, it was also creating a load wait and a bit of a lag. So again, with animations, you need, or anything on the page, that can be an accessibility fail. If it takes too long to load, then no one can access it. So again, we're always balancing these. So like spinning plates, I suppose, is a really good analogy of, it's not just the code that needs to be accessible, it has to be the content that's on it. Oh, you're on mute, Simon.
Yeah, I am on mute. Thanks, Sarah.
That's
Yeah,
all right.
I was coughing my lungs up earlier, and you wouldn't have
Oh.
wanted that. But no, just really, really interesting. Just conscious of time, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to me like you can make pretty much anything accessible. Is the message we're getting now with regards to front end websites? You know, we're making sure it's as usable and useful for as many people, members of the community, that are visiting our client sites. So, from a design perspective of design elements, is there anything that, that's a bit of a challenge, bit of a struggle that you think is gonna make your life miserable?
The thing that I'm going to use the word hate, because I really
Ooh.
do hate it. It's that strong. Is maps. I really loathe maps, and when I say maps, I don't mean Google. I don't mean OpenStreetView. I mean when someone comes to me with something like this, and I found the most horrific example possible. Is when someone wants to do a location map. Now, the reason it's technically difficult is because you have to get a bit technical with the CSS. You have to do a click path around the border, and then you have to click in it, and then actions have to happen. So that isn't too hard. It gets hard when you want it responsive. So again, when you come down and shrink it, the click path areas get tighter and tighter. Again, you have to create the click path areas with percentages, because you can't use pixels. You have to use the percentages or scale to scale it down. So when you're on mobile, it's almost virtually impossible to click on Barnstable or poor Nuki, that tiny green bit. So when people come to me and go, "Oh, marketing's had this most amazing idea, we should put a map on," you'll always see me go, "Oh." And I'm not gonna lie, it's normally expensive. because it's so much effort from our behalf to make it not only accessible but also responsive, so it can work on mobile. One of the things we did come up with when we were looking at it with Sunderland was actually repurposing the tab panel. So you can see here that we've got a map, and then what we were able to use is use the pills to click through. So you can see Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, to almost do an like a alternative version to it. So again, feel free to always put those map requests through. You're just going to see me at the other end go, and then send you a quote that's probably quite high and a load of explanations about, let's see if we can try and do this in a much prettier way. The only other thing that I also find really difficult is gradient. So if we go back to Sunderland, again, gradients is something that I work on quite a lot to try and get the balance right, so that it's on the background of a picture, to move through and get that sort of contrast so that it's still accessible with the background. I love a gradient personally. Gradients are my favorite thing. I don't find those hard to look at, but it's normally when you go, oh, I just want a little gradient. So with here, we've been really subtle with where the gradient comes down, and then we've worked with Sunderland to make sure that the images they add have a darkness on them so that it's enough of an accessibility switch to move through. But gradients is always sort of a big one to sort of like come through. It's why on our products you'll always notice we stick a white background. We don't put we try not to put gradients on our products, mainly because we don't know what background you're going to put, or if we have got a gradient, I think we've got one on the search, it's dark, almost black with like 80% great opacity on it, so it will pass. So yeah, gradients, I love them personally. I think they're so pretty and look really nice, but the hours I spend trying to make you accessible by fiddling with the gradients is really quite a close one.
So, but on the mapping front, Sarah, like you
Yeah.
said, I think clearly challenges in and around maps, and Lucy agrees with you, by the way. She's not a fan either. But the realistically, the thing to do is if people are coming up with ideas that, or they feel there's a need for a map in, then probably best to come to us to talk to us first.
Yeah.
before going off too far down the rabbit hole of what a map could do and how cool would it be, come to talk to us
Yes.
or you about the art of the possible, and that way help use that information to inform their planning. Oh, okay, good skills, cool, excellent.
Yeah.
Sarah, brilliant, fantastic, thank you so
No
much.